Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Sam Sakasiris. I'm the National Membership Team Leader here at AustMine, and I'm pleased to be your host today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending this webinar. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that to all leaders of all cultures and backgrounds in our multicultural nation. For today's webinar, I'm joined by Alex Posen, Supply Chain Manager at Geograph, Anton Kroger, Regional Vice President, Head of Natural Resources at SAP, and Robert McCarthy, General Manager Sales at Dyflex Solutions, for a discussion on future-proofing your supply chain with cloud ERP and AI. Following the presentation, there will be an opportunity for the audience to ask questions. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to send through any questions you have at any time. We'll cover them at the end. You can also upvote on other audience questions that you most want answered. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our presenters to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Sam. So my name is Anton, and also on the panel, Sam, we also have Indrasan Naidu, who's the Managing Partner for ISN Advisory, specialised in human-centric analytic supply chain transformation. So one more, all good. Okay, so to kick us off today, just a quick note. So it's interesting, in my role, I get to look at a number of industries across the Asia-Pacific region, and every industry is becoming more dynamic. COVID, along with the escalating violence in Europe, has given us a glimpse of just how dynamic this can be, as things that were once sure are no longer so sure. More recently, the Australian Made has emerged as a topic of national focus, and one that, if done well, should not only help us deliver a more robust supply chain in Australia, but also give us a bigger presence on the national and world stage. However, in order to be a great nation, we will require a new mindset and a leadership that can think differently if we are to change from a nation traditionally strong at shipping our natural resources to one that is able to process and add value to those resources. Today, we want to explore how Australian-made companies are taking this head-on to differentiate themselves and to use this foundation to establish a pattern of expansion and growth in international markets, not only for themselves, but also for their customers. We also explore the role of leadership, mindset, and technology as we adapt in a VUCA world to be more resilient, set ourselves up for a successful future. So my first question today is for Alex from Geograph. So Alex, can you tell us a little bit more about Geograph, a proud Australian business?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anton. So Geograph is a third-generation family-owned business, founded in 1968 by the current CEO's grandfather, in the Geograph Bay region just near Bunbury, which is, kind of where it gets its name. Neville, the founder, had a real passion for fixing things. He had a farm and he liked to work on his own tractors, but he absolutely loved improving things. And this desire to improve and to innovate and, to further develop his own farm tools, ultimately became a huge part of the Geograph ethos, for continuously innovating, continuously improving, and looking at how we can, ultimately improve the products that we supply to the market. And this has ultimately led to the enhanced performance product range that Geograph offers. So not only are we working to enhance a product's technical features, but we also work with our customers to provide tailored solutions for issues that they are seeing on mine sites, whether that's making a product safer to use, through the removal of hot works or something like that, or maybe the product is lighter, so you no longer need a two-man lift, you can now use a single-man lift, and it reduces that physical injury risk to some of the staff, through to, in some cases, completely redesigning aspects of the machine in order to make them more reliable. Our head office is based in Perth, and we have expanded over to the East Coast as well, and we do have branches over there. But our main manufacturing facility is in Bunbury, and so it's really quite exciting to be able to say that we manufacture in Australia, because there are not many businesses that still manufacture locally. It's also really valuable for our customers because we're able to service their needs quite quickly, either manufacturing to order or in the case of urgent breakdowns, turning around parts in just a couple of days. During COVID, this was particularly, of use to our customers because we didn't face those same supply chain issues that many of our competitors were dealing with. So our enhanced performance products and our unique product range, as well as our responsiveness, has really allowed us to grow quite significantly in the West and in the East. And ultimately, what we are looking to be able to try and do for our customers, and this comes back to this innovation point, is to solve their needs. So if they have an issue, they can come to us. We're not only a manufacturer of products, but we're also a business who can help provide them technical services to solving their problems that they're facing, and then obviously manufacturing the products to support them as well. So that's Geograph.
Thanks, Alex. So I think you've touched on a few things there, and I kind of want to pick up on some of those unique things that mining companies are looking for. So obviously being local has a big advantage. But what specifically are mining companies looking for when we talk about Proudly Australian? What is it that is different in your offering?
Yeah, so I think Proudly Australian really supports this idea that we manufacture locally and we give back to the Australian, economy or to local regions. But I think what Australian companies or what our customers are really coming to us for are these tailored solutions. So that solution could be something that is around, lowering the cost of their purchase price, or it could be around improving the reliability of their machines, or it could be improving the uptime of their machines. But ultimately, the customers are coming to us for a solution of some sort. If you take our hard rock mining customers, for example, they've engaged with us heavily for our enhanced performance product range to reduce the wear on their components, allowing for increased machine uptime as well as kind of easier removal and installation of those kind of products. So regardless of the solution that the customer is after, Geograph can ultimately be there and provide it and support it. We're super aware and super conscious that quality is always important, and it's something that we can never sacrifice on, and we're never willing to sacrifice on it. And I think that does feature back into this idea that we are proudly Australian. We are proud of the quality that comes out of an Australian factory, and supporting local Australian manufacturing. For our customers, we understand that they do often have to make a trade-off, but we don't want them to ever have to make a trade-off for quality. So they can come to us knowing quality is already taken care of, it's in the bag, and we can now look at those other solutions. You're never looking at a trade-off of a solution, whether it's lower cost at the expense of quality. And that is something that we're really proud of, and it's something that I think being Australian made really continues to support. So yeah. So
interesting. You mentioned a couple of things there. So you mentioned this focus on quality, which I agree is very, very important. But at the same time, you sort of tailored and flexible to kind of address, some different things, right? So how is it that you guys are actually set up now in, I guess, your current facility to allow you to be able to respond to these needs, I guess, which sometimes might conflict, right? So you want to be flexible, but at the same time, there's this quality and you've got to scale. How do you balance all that in your workshops and in your facilities today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's tricky for sure. It's definitely not easy, but I guess over the past decade, we've really been focused on being able to provide those solutions, and flexibility is one of those solutions, as well as lower cost. But our focus really around flexibility has been in our automation of our production, of our workshop. Going back 10 years earlier, everything was kind of manually done. We had a lot of manual CNC machines. Now we have fully robotic work centers that run 24/7 or 22/7, because we allow for 2 hours maintenance on a daily basis, just in case there are any issues. That automation and that increased runtime and uptime of our production facility has meant that we are able to service our customers more effectively. If they need something in 2 days' time, or if competitors are not able to provide it and they're coming to us, we might have it on the shelf, or we may be able to produce it in that really quick time frame for their maintenance event or their breakdown event or whatever it is. And it's primarily driven around this, improvement in our manufacturing uptime and our automation. So not only that, the automation, while initially, quite costly, has also led to lower cost overall as a business. So higher uptime means more product throughput, means lower cost overall. We're covering our fixed costs and all of that kind of stuff. So not only are customers getting the benefit of this, highly flexible, ongoing production facility, they're also getting the benefits of lower cost based on the automation of the machines. We also do allow time in our production schedule specifically for these breakdown events or these urgent requirements that customers have. So we don't keep a schedule that's 110% full all the time. We specifically only plan to 85%, 90% of our production capabilities, in order to allow that 10% or that 15%, depending on the work cell, for those urgent customer requirements, so that we're always there to support them.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at.
That's awesome to hear. I mean, I spend a lot of time up in Japan and places like that, and you just see the amount of automation those guys have. So it's really great to see that level of automation in Australia. So really exciting. So I encourage anyone who's interested to go and have a look at the facilities. It really is state of the art. Apparently, there's even a robot running around the warehouse somewhere. But anyway, Rob, I want to switch to you. Dyflex, another proud Australian company. Tell us a little about yourselves.
Thanks, Anton. So good to be here today. So Dyflex is a Perth-founded organization. We've been in existence for about 15 years now, and owned and run by the original founding partners. And we're a SAP partner, a platinum partner, and we provide ERP, business, finance, manufacturing, warehousing, supply chain, HR, technology solutions to businesses like Geograph and many other businesses, particularly in the resources space. So that's mining, oil and gas, service providers, contractors, refiners, battery manufacturers, renewable type organizations. So we've got a pretty broad range of customers, not only in Perth but throughout Australia. We were founded here. Our head office is here in Perth still. But we have now expanded, like Geograph, into the eastern states. We've probably got maybe 60% of our staffing now, of about 180, is actually based outside of WA. And we're servicing about 150, 160 customers across the country nationally. And as I said, very wide and diverse range of industries that we're actually providing. And like Geograph, we're growing quite rapidly. It seems like every Monday morning I turn up here, there are 2 or 3 new faces actually waiting at the door to get in and get started. And that's based primarily on our ability and SAP's ability to provide solutions that are, really fit for purpose in terms of what businesses actually need now, in terms of, satisfying the needs of organizations from not only financial, but manufacturing, distribution, etc. And providing those to SME and large scale businesses. So about 80% of our customers are in that SME space. So they're not necessarily all large scale organizations. Certainly some are. But it's the guys, as I said, in that supply chain for resources, in that manufacturing area, in that service area as well. So there's a wide range of capability there. And our ethos, Anton, really is around providing value and innovation to customers. So we let the standard software serve its purpose. It will cover about 80-90% of people's needs, but it's about providing that extra 10% that really makes a business unique, or provides them with the innovation or the cutting edge or the differentiator they need to match their customer requirements, to grow their business, or provide something a little bit different that separates them from the run-of-the-mill suppliers as well. So it's really about driving innovation, It's about driving technology and leveraging standard technology where we can, and delivering that into those businesses.
Yep. I must say, for myself personally, it's been great to see the growth in Dyflex, and I guess also just that focus on this, this really expanding segment of the market for Australian companies. I think it's fantastic that you guys can provide solutions in that space. So, Anderson, let me come to you now, because I guess you have a history with both of these companies while you were working actually for a mining company a few years ago. And so you have an interesting perspective on how they've both evolved since pre-COVID times. So maybe you want to tell us a little about what you see and share some of those thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Anton. I think some of what has been shared by my fellow panelists is really at the essence of their progression. I think what came through for me clearly when both Alex and Rob spoke was, at the heart of it is leadership. Geograph being a third-generation company, Rob has mentioned 15 years with Dyflex, and the founding leaders still being in the business. So I think the consistency of leadership and accompanied with that is the vision that the leaders had set out. We've heard about quality, we've heard about innovation, all of those good behaviors and attributes and values. So for me, looking back over the 10 years, it's most encouraging, and congratulations to all involved for staying the journey. You mentioned COVID. That's one big bump on the journey. And if we look at the hardcore numbers in terms of growth, customer improvement, how customers have progressed from the west to the east in terms of spread, how the organizations have grown, all of those signals are really a fundamental. The core value to my mind is that leadership has stuck the journey, stayed true to their vision, and with that has come growth. Now, I think the other thing that has probably evolved over time is that if I look at both companies through the eyes of a procurement, through the eyes of a customer, I would imagine that initially the journey would have been one of show me value for money. Increasingly, that would have shifted to, can you demonstrate value add? And it sounds to me now where both organizations are in conversation with their customers around value creation. What can we do together? What can we do differently? How can we innovate? And with that shift in relationship, I think typically a customer looking to be more strategic in their sourcing would see both Geograph and Dyflex as very complementary and very able collaborators in that journey. So to me, in summary, Anton, I think the organizations have very nicely shifted, not only in growth in customer based, but the depth and extent to which they are now involved with their customer conversations.
Yeah. Thanks, Anderson. I think that's a great point. This whole idea of shifting to creating value being a fundamental mindset change that we really need to work towards as companies, right? We're not just here to provide a widget. It's actually the whole service and the value that comes with a widget that becomes critical. So Alex, I'm going to come back to you for a second. So obviously Dyflex, we're keen to helping you deliver a technology solution that for many companies might seem out of reach, right? So you talked about the robotics, and I guess you have a very advanced ERP, but that's obviously clearly not the case because you've done it. Tell us a little bit about how the technology is helping you deliver that automation, tailored solutions you talked about earlier. Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, Geograph uses SAP as the primary system that runs our business. We adopted S/4HANA in 2018. And I think we were the first manufacturing business in the Southern Hemisphere to kind of jump on board. So that was quite exciting. And then in late 2018, early 2019, we engaged Dyflex as our support partner, as part of our digital journey kind of moving forward. What we found is, some of the functionality in SAP, particularly around our production environment, has really provided us with insights as to how our production work centers are performing. It's allowed us to see the workloads on each work center, clearly seeing overloaded machining cells, which has been something that we've not really been able to see prior to S/4HANA. Not only that, but we can also make changes to the production plan in real time, and then we're able to see and simulate what those changes to the production plan will actually do. So from here, we can make informed decisions around, what is it that we actually need to do next? Do we need to apply overtime to that particular machining cell if it's, if it's a person-man production machining cell? Or do we need to look at shifting work from machining cell X to machining cell Y? Or is there some other action that needs to be taken in order to service the customer more effectively, or to still deliver in line with what that customer's lead time was? So prior to our move to S4HANA, we weren't really able to do this. Now, I mentioned previously that innovation is a huge part of our business, and it's something that our customers engage us for, but it's also something that we have a passion for ourselves. It started with the ethos of the founder, and it's kind of permeated through the business that whole way. So not only have we kind of leveraged SAP's inbuilt functionality there, but we've also, as mentioned kind of previously, we've also started to develop our own, programs and digital IP over the past few years. And the awesome thing about SAP was we were able to seamlessly kind of integrate our, tool that did something very specific, very unique for us and our business with the SAP ecosystem and infrastructure. And that allowed for a lot of these repetitive tasks to basically be taken away. So process-based tasks. It's also allowed us to have our production machines talk directly to SAP. So our production machines do work, and then they confirm the operations to say, yep, production order, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, has been complete. It was completed on date XYZ, time ABC, and links all of the corresponding documents that we need around the heat certs for the materials for the raw materials. It keeps track of the time, to do the job and all of that kind of stuff. So again, prior to S4HANA, this really wasn't possible. So prior to us, really taking SAP on board, it wasn't possible. And then, finally leveraging SAP in our support, in our growth internationally. We're now supporting customers in Africa, in Indonesia, in Mongolia, and we're just now expanding into the Americas, both Canada, North America, and South America. And Dyflex have obviously been a huge support for us there in developing that digital infrastructure and leveraging SAP's functionality to be able to essentially operate and transact in those new countries.
Wow, thanks, Alex. It's great to hear you're getting so much value from the technology. It is really, really exciting, and obviously the ability to kind of not only use it in the workshop, but actually take it to the world at large and enable that. I think that is fantastic. Rob, so I'm going to come back to you, because obviously you guys were really key to pulling all this together, helping integrate this back-end ERP system that the Geograph have with some of their operational systems, as well as integrate it with some of the international supply chain type of things. Tell us a little bit about how you like to work with other industry-leading companies, and is there a difference between the companies that you work with more broadly across Australia?
I think Alex and Geograph and the team there are pretty indicative of the types of businesses that we're working with more broadly. And what Geograph have demonstrated very, very well is that open-mindedness, right? That ability to let the vendor do a lot of the day-to-day process-based innovation. It will work out of the box. It will handle your manufacturing. It'll handle production orders. It'll handle an AP process or a order to delivery process. And what that allows businesses like Geograph and others to do is again focus on that innovation. Take the standardized processes that are there, adopt those, embrace those, and then focus on the differences. What makes Geograph unique? What are the unique requirements of Geograph? What are the things that are going to make Geograph different from its competitors, for instance? And we're seeing the same thing in other business. So we're getting a lot of leverage now with renewables type organizations, wind farms, batteries, even some of the critical mineral miners in terms of their own processing and their ambitions in terms of what they want to do around that, in terms of, you know, that full end-to-end supply chain. Because I think we've all realized that, you know, if we want to stay relevant in the future, we can't just dig the stuff out of the ground and ship it off overseas. We actually have to add value here. That's what we really have to do. And how do we do that cleverly? How do we compete with the low-cost economies that are overseas? And you know, are we competing on price? Are we competing on quality? Are we competing on innovation? So that mindset is here. Everybody realizes that that's what we want to get to. And you know, from an SAP perspective, you know, they take on the lion's share of that kind of standard process innovation, and you know, enabling those processes, supplying those processes at different flavors that will work in pretty much any business, but then overlaying that with the AI capability, the machine learning capability that allows that integration of some of the IP, for instance, again that Geograph have generated, and allows that to speak to the core backend solutions very easily, very quickly, and actually provide insight, provide meaningful data, and then extend that insight into, you know, some of the other predictive capability that's available within S/4HANA, for instance, right? In terms of, you know, what does my delivery forecast actually look like? What's my goods inwards forecast and material requirements forecast actually look like? You know, what am I actually going to do from a pure financial and overall business forecasting in terms of inventory demand, production demand, headcount demand? What does that look like when I roll it all up into my financials? And what impact is that going to have on my business planning going forward as well, especially in scenarios where you're actually expanding overseas into the unknown somewhat, right? How can I model that? How can I visualize that? How can I plan for that? And then how can I react when things might not necessarily go to plan? Right? What happens? Something changes. I need to swap out materials. I need to swap out suppliers. I need to swap out some element of shipping or freight that's going to impact my supply chain. So being able to model that, visualize all that, plan for all of that, and react effectively to all of that is key to any system and any business going forward. And really, you know, what we want to do is work with Geograph, work with SAP, and then, you know, work with the customers and stay close to the customers exactly the way Geograph has. And that can be physically closer in terms of actually sending people there, you know, walking around the floors, really getting in under the skin of what the businesses need from a day-to-day basis, how they're operating, how their people are using the system, how they're actually interacting with the customers, but also allowing the customer to get close to their customer, to get close to their suppliers and supply chain. You know, a lot of our customers are actually embedding themselves within their own customers, right? So they're actually there. They're having spare parts available on their customer's floor, or in the case of Geograph, if we've just heard it there, you know, having a very quick turnaround and having that capacity to deliver parts in emergency or, you know, high demand situations, and be very proactive and reactive. And then the other element there is enable things like servitization. So the commercial model and the commercial engagement with the customer actually changes slightly. So we're no longer just, you know, taking an order for a part, shipping the part, delivering the part, and invoicing it. We've probably got a slightly different commercial engagement there as well, which maybe says, you know, well, what we'll do is we'll make sure we have a minimal capacity available to you at all times so that we can react immediately. We can service your parts immediately, okay? And maybe that's a different type of commercial engagement. But all that does is increase the stickiness to our customers, okay, and our customers' customers. So that collaboration, that innovation is done in partnership then as well. It's not just about me being a supplier and you being a customer anymore. It's about how do we work together so it's a win-win for all of us. And in terms of examples of that, I mean, I'll give you some examples. So, you know, some of the things that SAP has allowed us to do more recently is, you know, obviously automation. You know, we talk about AI and how that enables automation. And, you know, you can take the standard old style example of, you know, AP invoice automation. I can stick 1,000 invoices in the scanner and, you know, they go through. So that's a very simple one. And that scenario has been around an awful long time. But now what's actually happening is that the visibility, the workflow, the escalation capability, and the automation capability has increased by, you know, 100 times factor now. So, you know, we can actually handle that at real volume with no loss of fidelity of data, with increased automation, with OCR scanning, with attachment invoices, with workflow, very, very easily. And it's a good example of capability that was, probably only in the realm of the very, very large organizations previously, but now is within reach of absolutely everybody. And a lot of the capability from an SAP perspective has allowed us to, for instance, develop in shutdown scenarios, for instance, printing apps, which are actually quite intelligent in terms of, you got large in the old days, organizing a shutdown. I had a big table, I had work packages maybe printed out, sorted and printed, and then I maybe had documents over the top of it, and then I stapled it all together, made sure it was in the right sequence, etc., and then dished it out to each of the operators. We can obviously digitize all that. We can send all that out to mobile devices and allow people to work that way. But often is the case that you may have contractors coming in. You're not going to give them all devices. So maybe you want to actually give them physical work packs. But I don't want to be printing 500 pages and chewing up 1,500 trees while I'm doing that. So now what we've got is, can print out those work packs, which will obviously work dependent and equipment dependent, but they're also skill dependent. I know if I've got a level 2 operative, I need to give him some extra instruction sheets. If I've got a level 5, maybe I don't need to give him all of that information. Okay. So again, I can use parameters within there to selectively print in the right sequence all of that documentation for that contractor, deliver it to him, and maybe then he sends it back to me with handwritten notes. I can scan that back in, it gets attached to the original work order, and I've used, again, some intelligent scanning to extract text from that and digitize all of that. So again, there are a couple of examples. Another one would be, inspection applications. So we now have a series of inspection apps that can be configured for, everything from, Take 5 observations, fault reporting, checklists. We have examples in the marine environment, for instance, where, I have to go through a checklist every time that boat leaves the wharf. We can digitize all of that, and then we can operationalize the results of that inspection or that survey. And it may give rise to a work order or something else. So lots of opportunity, lots of scope for collaboration and joint innovation.
That's awesome, Robert. You mentioned a lot of things there: AI, automation, workflow automation, even be able to print smartly. I think that's great. So, it's going to be really exciting to see what happens with Geograph. And I'd ask you what's next on the roadmap, but that's probably a closely guarded secret, no doubt, for these guys, as they're really looking to cut the bleeding edge. But Anderson, quickly, I want to come back to you. Last question before we open up to general questions. So we've heard how these companies, Geograph, Dyflex, are really making some bold moves in the market. You're also in an interesting position in that you work with a wide variety of customers in different industries, everything from mining to banking to governments. What advice would you give companies looking to be more innovative?
Yeah, so I think I should also contextualize in terms of the background that our focus is very much on operating model, inclusive of supply chain and supply chain resilience. So I'll answer your question to that perspective. I think number one is that technology is not a constraint. And you've just listed, and Alex has shared, and Sam have shared a list of opportunities that have unveiled with technology. So it's less about technology being the constraint, and it's more a case of how do you use technology to bolster your operating model. Now, one of the big shifts you mentioned early on as well, we work in a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. The counter to that is, no surprise, another acronym called BANI, brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible, which is really what is the effect of the VUCA world on operating models, where, brittle is essentially your operating models getting challenged. Anxious is the mindset and psychology of the people involved. Non-linear being the N, in that small changes can have big effect. And incomprehensible is that some of these changes are difficult to grab and get hold of. So increasingly we are seeing people really re-examine their operating model, look at new ways of working, and try to build resilience. And I think key to that is also a shift. Similarly, we had initially shareholder focus, then you had a stakeholder focus, and increasingly we're starting to see operating models taking a greater systems focus. What I mean by systems, looking at the world at large and ESGs, your social impact, and your environmental impact, but all within one context of building organizational resilience. So, Anton, I think that the thing that's common across all industries is this shaping of new ways of working, new operating models, reinventing organizations in some way or the other, all of which is underpinned by very selective and purpose-driven use of technology. And I reiterate, I don't see technology as the constraint, but I really see, the vision and leadership showing adaptability to new ways of working within the current context.
Thanks, Indrason. I love this idea of technology is not the constraint. I think it's definitely time we got onto using it. There's so many opportunities, like you pointed out, for us to use the technology. It's really that leadership and mindset. So that's absolutely key. So for the listeners on the line, I would just encourage you again to put any questions you have in the chat. We're going to open that up in a minute. And so while we're waiting for people to pop a couple of questions in the chat, I quickly might throw back to Rob and Alex, if you've got any closing remarks, building on what Indrason just talked about, how do we build that mindset, that leadership into our thinking?
Yeah, I think for me, it really comes down to, being open to progress, not being stuck in, this is how it's always been done, this is how it should always be done. And just being open to that will then give you that opportunity to at least consider what can be done in the future, or how you can change things and kind of moving forward. So really, from a leadership perspective, it's being open to what's possible.
I might answer that as well, Alex. I think that innovation is not just in the purview of the very large organizations. It's available now. That it is available to small and medium-sized businesses today. That capability is built into products like S/4HANA. It's been leveraged by small to medium-sized businesses. I think I mentioned 80% of SAP's client base is small to medium-sized businesses. So I think it's be open-minded, be innovative, imagine, dream, and it is within grasp, and have a conversation. There's plenty of people probably doing similar things to what you want to do, and there's a community of people out there who have potentially started that journey already, and who are more than willing to share their experience and their ideas and their solutions. So I think it's just reach out and have that conversation.
Awesome. Cool. So there are a couple of questions coming through. So the first one is actually for Indrason. The question is, can you please repeat the acronym BANI, B-A-N-I? What did that stand for?
Yes, I can. Yes, it's BANI. Brittle, as in operating models are becoming increasingly more challenged. Anxious, as in the psychological effect of this new complex, uncertain world. What is the impact on the workforce? And we hear a lot about mental health and well-being as examples of that. N, non-linear. So a small change, because these are complex systems, a small, something small can have a big impact. So cause and effect. Okay, so, and then I is incomprehensible. We've often spoken about uncertainty in terms of decision-making, but a lot of the changes are incomprehensible because it just comes out of the blue. How do you process this? And all of this processing internally means you really have to reframe and rethink new ways of working. So those are so brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible.
Awesome. All right. So Alex, a question for you. So you spoke about the increasing demand from Australian miners for locally sourced, high quality solutions tailored to their needs. Can you provide a specific example of how Geograph has successfully tailored a solution to meet the unique challenges faced by an Australian mining company, and what impact that had on their operations?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple. A customer came to us and said that they had a pin that goes into a location very close to an oil sump of a particular vehicle. it's under the truck, and so mud and grime and all this kind of rubbish kind of gets up into that recess. And what ends up happening is the pin gets seized and you're not able to kind of pull it out. So typically miners were having to go and thermal lance and use hotworks to kind of remove this remove the seized pin. But they didn't always want to empty the oil sump, because that was a really, like, it took a lot longer to perform the maintenance. And so we had this huge risk of hotworks and flames and all of this kind of stuff near the oil sump of the truck, which, obviously if it catches on fire, we've got a bit of an issue. So they came to us to look for a solution, and we worked with them and provided a solution that essentially became a, oh goodness, I don't really know how you describe it, but it's built specifically so the pin itself actually breaks apart and then you can slide it in and out, essentially. So all of this grime, all of this muck, all of this rubbish, the pin actually kind of collapses in on itself, and then you can pull it out and you no longer need the hotworks. So, this really reduced a lot of the risk around the hotworks permits, about, the truck catching on fire. And it also significantly reduced the amount of time that was required to actually perform the maintenance, because you no longer had to empty the oil sump, you no longer had to refill it at a later date and all of that kind of stuff. So that was one example that our customers locally were facing. And another one is a product that we developed called the ball stud removal tool. Feel free to Google it. It's a patented product, and it's won a bunch of innovations. But essentially, our customers were taking up to 3 shifts, so 36 hours, to remove a ball stud from their trucks. Tier 1 miner came to us and said, this is a huge issue. It delays our refurbishment and our ability to get the truck back up and running. What can you do to support us? So we worked with them for, I think, the better part of 12 to 18 months, and we developed this tool to kind of go from there. So key benefit out of it is essentially it pops the studs in 2 minutes per stud, and there are 8 on a truck, so about 20 minutes to do everything, down from, in some cases, 36 hours that the customers were facing. So those are sort of the major ones that we've sorted customers out with.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So we are very close to time, but I'm going to take one more question quickly. So the last question is for Andreas again. So you mentioned that both Geograph and Dyflex have shown some impressive growth, innovation quickly, especially during this post-COVID era. What do you think were the key factors that allowed these companies to leverage technology and mindset shifts so effectively? And how do they compare to global benchmarks in the respective fields?
So let's work backwards. I think global benchmarks are notoriously dangerous. I don't have any at hand, simply because we're looking at both organizations being smaller organization, and context is particularly relevant, bearing in mind both are Western Australian companies. And we have a pretty small and narrow focus geography in terms of customer base being predominantly mining. So I wouldn't want to venture a benchmark answer to that. To the initial part of the question, I think fundamentally it's leadership and vision. As said at the outset, a 3-generation company, a 15-year-old company, what has been the consistency of within both companies, all other things excluded, has been consistency of leadership. And then together with that leadership, we've heard the mindset of that leadership is one orientated towards innovation, towards future-proofing their businesses by looking at new ways, new ideas. And if you look at Dyflex's growth as an example of contrasted against the SAP footprint, as Rob articulated, they've progressively worked their way through an envelope of SAP solutions and now present to many of those solutions. So I think it's that incremental new products. And then we heard the third part, taking those new products and existing products into new markets. So while Perth itself is small, we've heard from both companies that they're now present across Australia. And we heard from Alex that now they're also present in other countries, other geographies. What's also relevant of that is that progression is also in line with the progression of their customers. So if you take Geograph and you take them as serving the mining community, we see increasingly many mining companies doing work in Africa, and I do quite a bit of work in Africa. And there's a strong presence of Australian companies in various forms, from being miners to mining services companies. And I think what has held that growth and progression is the ability of both organizations to match their customers' growth and not be found short to say, well, my customer's growing into Africa, what do I do? How do I do it? But in fact, they are future-proof themselves to grow with their customers, would be the other key point I would make.
Awesome.
Hopefully that's an answer, short and sharp.
Very short and sharp for a very complex question. But anyway, so look, I'd like to thank the panel very much for their time today. So Alex, Rob, and Indrasen, really appreciate your insights and your thoughts in the discussion today. Sam, if I could hand back to you to wrap us up, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Anton. Yeah, and thank you from Ostmine as well to yourself, Anton, Alex, Robert, and Indrasen for your insight and expertise that you shared today. Just want to let you know a recording of this webinar will be available for your on-demand viewing, as well as being available on Ostmine's YouTube page. If you registered for this, you will get that link. If you have any further questions for the presenters, please contact us and we will put you in touch with them directly. Thank you to everybody who's attended, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next Ostmine webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.